Kia ora, and now my haramai to another episode of Curiously Catholic, the Evangelion podcast. Peace be to you.
Let us begin with a question.
So in this episode, we're going to be talking about a lot of things, but first off, I want to get started and say it's been hard getting started this year. I've been trying my best, but there's a lot going on at work, there's a lot going on with the family, and there's a lot going on with Evangelion. Next week, we have Brendan Malone coming out. Thinking Matters are doing a tour with him, and we've put him on a few other things, so he's going to be talking at a few parishes at the beginning of next week. And then we've also got, on the 22nd of March at Holy Family Parish, we're going to have a St. Joseph's conference because it's his feast day. So we're going to be doing a St. Joseph's conference on the 22nd of March. Father Jeremy's going to be talking. Evangelion's going to be there. Bonds of Marian Love are putting it on, so check that out. And also we're going to have, in May, we're going to have the Divine Mercy Conference. So Father Chris Alar and about 6 other awesome speakers are coming out to New Zealand to talk to us about evangelization, about the Divine Mercy, and all other host of things. We've got some great speakers. Hopefully, I'm going to be getting interviews with them on this podcast. We are going to be posting about it on our Instagram page. And last, but by no means least, we have Father Dalton coming out at the beginning of July. Now, those dates are yet to be confirmed, but it's probably going to be the 2nd of July. He's going to Australia to talk about the Shroud of Turin. He's going to be coming to New Zealand to talk about the Shroud of Turin and possibly into South Asia. So if you're interested, check out our Instagram page, tune into the podcast where I'll be giving way more details. And like I said, it's been hard getting going this year. So I've been trying to do a few things, become a bit better, and hopefully you'll be seeing a lot more of me. I'm going to be trying to do more reels on Instagram. It's one of those things. I don't think I want to be an influencer, but you need to have content if you're going to have content. So I'm working on doing that. But please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, and like, share, and interact with all our things. I even created a Twitter recently for Curiously Catholic and for Evangelion, so I'm trying to tweet. Well, it's not Twitter anymore, is it? It's X, so I'm trying to express myself. As Pope Benedict said, we've got the online continent. We need to evangelize everything, and that's what we're trying to do with Evangelion. We're trying to bring the gospel to all nations, and all nations starts here in Aotearoa, so we've got all those conferences coming up. But as I've been trying to crack on with this year, as I've been trying to get going, I've been hitting landmine after landmine, wall after wall. A lot of it is up here. A lot of it is round by my shins, kicking me and scratching me and grabbing me. There's the children. And some of it is my work, which takes up time because we need to make money. We need to provide for our families. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I've been seeking wisdom, I've been seeking help, and, the church offers a lot. But I thought, you know what? The church is made up of people, and God is real to all of us, so what does the world have to offer to us? And I've fallen across the kind of something I've been interested in quite a while, the kind of self-improvement movement. I'm a big follower of Jocko Willink, Gary V, Alex Hormozy, Chris Williamson, you name the guy. I follow him in my podcast list. I listen to all their episodes about how to optimize, maximize, operationalize your life to make it more effective. And a lot of it is about, keeping fit. It's about making money. It's about progressing. And, I try and follow it. I try and do these things. And what occurred to me is actually, this is the Catholic life. So recently, I've read a book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And this book is like the bee's knees. This is the main source of all these movements. I don't know if it's the main source, but these guys have definitely read it because he's talking about our habits atomically. So we explode and destroy everything. No, the atomic level. This book's about breaking everything down to the atomic level and saying, look, we have habits. Our brains are built to make things easier for themselves. Because think about it. What does your brain do? You breathe. That's your brain. You get hungry. That's your brain. You feel that tickly feeling under your foot. That's your brain. And at the same time, you listen to erudite conversations about philosophy and theology, and you come up with creative ideas, and you produce amazing works of art. That's all your brain. And unless you wanted to sleep for months and months after just having a conversation, you should probably come up with some shortcuts and some easier ways of doing things so that you can actually function in the world. And this is what habits are. It's just your brain coming up with easy ways of doing things. And so James Clear talks about, okay, your brain's going to be making these habits anyway. How can you maximize on these? How can you train your brain to make habits, to make hard things easy, to make you more productive, to make you live the life that you want to live? And so it's a really good book, and I highly recommend it. He talks about it. He breaks it down. First off, he talks about some amazing stories where they've implemented these. I think there's like 5 different categories that lead into you to the making a habit. Actually, I'm just going to grab the book. Hold on. Right, well, I just ran upstairs and got the book. I've just caught my breath as well, because it turns out I'm not as fit as I thought I was, which James Clear's book can help me with, by the way. Yeah, so I've got the book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, sold over 15 million copies around the world. That's pretty impressive alone. I mean, it's not quite the Bible, but it's pretty impressive. And basically, he's talking about how to take our habits, which we're going to be making anyway, and using them for the things that we want to achieve. So what do you want to achieve in your life? As a Catholic, it's probably holiness. But one of the things that I think is great about it is it takes your life seriously. And a big proponent of it is living intentionally. How do you want your life to be? What do you want to achieve? And it's not about, one of the things it talks about, it's not looking at your goals, but looking at your systems. So it gives the idea of like everyone at the beginning of a race has the same goal. Only one person wins. And so the way that you get to the end of the race first, how you win the gold medal, is about how you prepared for the race. Once you get to the race, it's just about running it. So, and I thought that's really, really essentially the spiritual life. It's not just about like business or fitness or even just the virtues of like productivity and efficiency. We live in a world that's all about optimization already, and we can get lost in that. And I think there is that kind of like bad taste in the mouth, like, oh, this is just kind of trying to lead to, earning more money or just being really big muscles or whatever. It's not actually about our lives, but it is. It's about our systems, not our goals. And so it turns our life into an action. It takes seriously how we are supposed to live. It's not just about doing cool things. It's not just about how can I get to top of Everest quickest, because that's another thing of society, isn't it? It's like, how can we do it the easiest way possible? But the best way isn't necessarily the hardest way. The best way is being the most prepared. And like, one thing that struck me is that like, we're aiming for that one time. We want to be the hero. We want to be able to, outrun someone. We want to be able to outlift someone, or we want to be the best at work, or we want to have the greatest relationship. But are we spending all our time on our phones? Are we not going to the gym? Are we not paying attention at work? Are we not doing all the tiny daily choices that make you into a person that God created you to be, that make you into an effective person, as James Clear is talking about? And it struck me about, like, for example, like Saint Gianna. I mean, one of the famous stories, well, the thing that like Saint Gianna did was she chose to give her life for the life of her child. And that's a very, selfless thing. It's a great heroic act. But it didn't come about from just doing whatever, being the slave to her desires, just going about life, doing whatever she wanted, eating what she wanted, reading what she wanted. It came from a life formed on God. She was also a doctor. It came from a life of knowing the intricacies of the human body and being able to act effectively in that world. And then when it came to the point where she had to choose, she knew the scenario. She knew biologically what was going wrong and right, and how to do things. Wrong. Anyway, but she knew the biology of it, but she also knew like the theology and the spirituality of it. She knew the value of the life because she'd formed herself on these things. And it's the same for every saint. You think of like, you think of even Christ going to the cross. The sorrowful mysteries are him being faced with time after time opportunities to turn around. He could have said, you know what, screw it, I'm going to go sleep with my mates in the Garden of Gethsemane. He's not going to focus on this. I'm just going to scroll through my phone. I'm not going to think about it. But no, he turned to God in that moment, and he felt, and he was in that intensity. The most challenging mystery I find with the sorrowful mysteries is the scourging at the pillar, because it's not just him being whipped with like the whipped scourged. It's not just the story of him getting scourged. It's a story of Pilate saying, "Look, I can't find anything wrong with you. Do you want to? You just say it. You say the word, and I'll set you free. You don't have to go through with this. You're innocent. I can see you're innocent." And Jesus doesn't go, "Oh, brilliant! This is a way out for me." He knows that he has to go through this, and he goes through it, and he wears the crown of thorns, and he carries the cross, and he's ultimately crucified. He goes through it because he knows he's in his being. He's been prepared for this since the beginning, and this is the moment he's up to. So, and we see that in our own life, and the church kind of encourages this. You know, we're told in the scriptures, pray ceaselessly. Don't just pray every so often, but make your life a prayer. Like St. Augustine talks about habits, saying, if a habit is not resisted, then it becomes a necessity. So what necessities do you want in your life? Do you want, I need my phone in order to go to sleep, or I need to have chocolates at the end of the day to relax, or I need to watch the next Netflix special to defrag? Or do we want to change it? You know, do we want to, we're heading into Lent now. What can I get rid of out of my life to find a deeper peace, to find God? How do I get through that? And James talks about this in brilliant ways in his book. So he's got the 4 habits, the 4 rules of habit making, but he starts off by talking about 2 pretty cool concepts of 1% better every day. And he talks about how things kind of like, you know, compound. So if you do start doing one thing, like even for something very simple, like, okay, like the Jordan Peterson, making my bed. I'm going to wake up every day, I'm going to make my bed. And how the answer to your problems, like I want to have a clean room. So you spend one day, you tidy your whole room. But the problem is you're going to go back to the way you were living, and it's going to get messy. So you need to change the habits of cleaning, being a tidy person. And that kind of talks about the second point, which he goes into, is like identity-based change. So I'm a tidy person. What would a tidy person do? They wouldn't put things down here. They'd put things in the drawer, or they wouldn't leave the washing till later. They'd do it straight away. And coming up with all these little things, and with these 1% changes, like with the British cycling team, in the book it talks about how they went through like really small things, like how they wash their hands. It's like, what's that got to do with cycling? It's like, well, if they get sick, they can't cycle. And like they even like painted the inside of their travel van white so they could make sure it was completely clean, so there's no dirt in there. Really weird things, and it gets quite obsessive, but let's not obsess about it. Let's think about those things in our lives that we can do. And so that, yeah, I am a child of God. I want to be Christian, Christ-like. Like Christ. I want to be like Christ. So we've got that famous adage, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do, and what is a 1% change I can make towards that? Like, let's not say, what would Jesus do? Well, he died on a cross. Let's go find a cross. What would Jesus do? He would give of himself. How can I give of myself today? Small changes like that, which we can make in our life. What would Jesus do is like, he would turn to God in his need. He would take time away to go up the mountain and pray. And like through that, he would walk on water. And so that the walking on water is obviously the not the goal, but that's the heroic moment that we desire. But the 1% changes was his life was dedicated to God. And how can we do that in our life? And then it gets on to the 4 rules. They're obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, which kind of makes sense. They're fairly simple. Make it obvious, put it in your way. Attractive, something you enjoy, make it something you enjoy. Easy, just reduce the friction. And satisfying, we can probably work that out. James goes into more detail. I mean, here's things in my life which I've been doing before I read this book because I realize it's effective, is I want to, when I started going to the gym more, the only way, literally the only way I can get to the gym is if I set it out the day before. If I wake up in the morning, I've put my alarm on the other side of the room, and next to my alarm is my gym gear. It's like, well, I'm up now, I might as well put my gym gear on. And then, actually, I find that one thing I've done to make it attractive is like, I found a protein shake that's really tasty. So it's like, if I work out, I get to have this protein shake. The difficulty is getting to the gym, I find. It's, especially when I do it before a shift, It's like 4 a.m. I'm trying to wake up and get ready, and that's not fun. But afterwards, I feel good. And remembering that as like the attractiveness, and that's kind of the satisfying part of it as well, and making it easy, just laying it all out so I don't need to think about it. We could do the same with prayer. Like, you see people wearing a rosary. It's like, wear your rosary so then it's obvious. It's easy. It's right there. Get a nice rosary so it's attractive and satisfying. I get to use my rosary. I was actually I was walking back from Ash Wednesday Mass, and I was walking along. I was like, I'm walking. I might as well go on do a rosary. So I was praying, and these two old ladies further down the road shouted me and told me to come and have a chat with them. And they were like, "Where did you get this rosary for? It's beautiful." By the way, shout out to Sanctus Rosaries. My mate Craig makes them by hand. So check him out. I think he's got an Instagram page and he's on socials and stuff. But yeah, so I had this beautiful rosary that I love the feel of in my hand, and I made it easy. I had the rosary on me, so it was there, easy, and then there's the obvious thing to do after Mass. So after Mass, I was walking, I had this time to myself. So just make sure you're prepared for all these things. Live a life that you want to live so that you can do the things that you want to do is kind of the way I would sum up this book, and it's the way I would sum up our Catholic faith. Atomic Habits is about breaking down our everyday life into ways that we can be more effective. We can change these things that our brain already does so that we can achieve the things that we want to do. Well, then let's break down our faith into the component parts. And then from those component parts, little elements that go into it. There's actually a book I'm going to read coming up, Super Habits. I can't remember the name of the guy. And basically, it's a Catholic version of Atomic Habits, but it's looking at the virtues and breaking the virtues down into component parts. It's like, okay, I want to have a clean room, but cleaning the rooms is really overwhelming. So what's the first thing I need to do? Well, let's put the vacuum in the room so then I can at least vacuum the room, or I'm just going to put the socks away. That's really attainable. And just doing those 1% changes, eventually you have a clean room, and then you come up with these principles and these identity and this way of life that's easy, attractive, obvious, and satisfying. And you have this life. I mean, how satisfying is a clean room? And how satisfying is, having a holy life? I was thinking about it. I'm doing Exodus 90 at the moment, and they've decided to go take us through the Book of Jonah, which is really cool. And I realized you talked about today about how running away from God, Jonah sent himself down. If you read the scriptures, he goes, down to Tarshish, down to the bottom of the boat, and down further if you carry on reading. But what struck me is, like, when he was in the boat, there was a massive storm that was tearing it apart. And he was fast asleep. And so when we run away from God, we just fall asleep. We don't go anywhere. We don't achieve anything. We just do nothing. And so, if we want to achieve things, we need God. If we want to move forward in life and have the people around us that we want, we need God in that. It's like when I'm trying to make breakfast in the morning, or I'm trying to scroll through my phone and my kids just want to play. They are the most annoying people in the world at that point, because I'm trying to do something that is, opposite, that's not conducive to my parenthood. I'm trying to not be a parent here. I'm trying to be a guy that sits on his phone all day. But I found that if I take myself off my phone and I turn to my kids in those moments, and it might not be that they want to play, they might just want help with something, like, can you move this? What does this word say? And I stop doing what I do and I start engaging with the person that God has created me to be, then I actually feel better. The kids feel better. They learn how to read, they play a really good game. You play with them for 5-10 minutes, you have a great time, and then they start playing by themselves, and then I can go back to reading my book. I can go back to working on my shed. So you just got to engage with what God has in front of you. And the Atomic Habits gives us a way of doing that by breaking it down into easy ways of life, easy ways of doing things. Like I said, this fits in with the life of the church. Now, like, we've got people like St. Benedict's Rule of Life. the monastic life, which is the whole thing about Exodus 90. Take away the things that you don't need. Make your life and work prayer. We have these things in the church. So it's just a case of whether we want to engage with them or not. How do we engage with them? Well, I recommend this book. Try listening to it on YouTube if you don't want to buy it. Think of 1% change you can make in your life today. Think of who you want to be. And then before you know it, you'll be achieving the things that you always wanted to. But it was never about that. It was about becoming more Christ-like. So, as I said earlier, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube. We have a website that I don't update, but you can contact us through that page. And we've got a whole bunch of events coming up this year. Let's be more like St. Joseph. What's that look like? Come to March, Holy Family March the 21st. We want to evangelize more. How do we do that? Let's find out in May. And let's find out what things God has left us in this life, like the Shroud of Turin at the beginning of July. So check out all those things at evangelion.com, on Instagram, NZ_Evangelion, and at Curiosity Catholic. My name is Dominic Malageri. Peace be with you. God bless.